Hello and good evening. It's very late where I am in Central Europe, but I'm taking the time to write some good stories and I've had a very productive evening so far. So I thought I'd take time out to answer a few questions. I've been doing a lot of live streaming and I've gotten quite a few questions from some of the viewers. One question I get asked quite a lot and I'm noticing in the comments is, how do I know if my writing is any good? How will I know if my writing is going to be any good? So like I said, this question comes up a lot in the live sessions. People are very curious. You have a lot of people who want to write and are not sure if it's for them. You have so many people with so many dreams and so many ideas and so many, I would say, ideologies, and they just have so many stories to tell. These are people from all over the world and they want to be able to tell a story. It's not necessarily about making a profit, it's more about telling a story. And I think that the more people who tell their stories, the more people who tell stories creatively as well, I think the world would be a much better place and a less stressful place, because we would have a good therapeutic outlet. So where do you begin as a writer, first of all? Before you decide if you're going to be any good as a writer, where do you begin as a writer? And I believe where you begin as a writer is you just write. You have to just start writing. You grab a pen. Obviously, that's my technique. You grab some paper, you get your laptop, open it up, get some music on, and just start writing. You have to put yourself in a state of mind where you're willing to just sit there and write. I always say to people, start with a few minutes. Don't try and set a writing sprint of an hour or 2 hours, because in most cases you are setting yourself up for disappointment. I would say start with 5 minutes. Just start with 5 minutes. Learn to sit down, block out all the outside noise, the chaos, the noise, and just focus on your writing and see where it takes you. I also recommend sticking some music on, because I think one of the biggest distractions is phones, gadgets going off, noise from the outside world, buses, and noise of traffic, people. And I think those are the biggest distractions. So if you can block out any noise, just stick some headphones on. Try and face away from a window, or try and look into a view with very little going on. So you just switch off and then see where it takes you and see what your first words are. I wouldn't try too much in terms of plotting or anything as heavy as that. Just start with a few simple words and see where it takes you. Now, if you feel you want to write, but you don't feel you have any good ideas, the first thing I would say to do is head into nature, or do some exercise. Do anything that leaves your body utterly exhausted, because once your body is completely exhausted, it leaves space for everything else to happen. And once your body is exhausted, your mind is a lot more, I would say, a lot more free, and your mind is free to wander and have different thoughts. I would also say try going into nature, and then you'd also get ideas in nature, walking, hiking, whatever you do in nature that relaxes you. That's what you need to do to get some ideas. Now, what happens once you get an idea? Imposter syndrome steps in, especially if it's going to be your first book, your first story, your first time ever writing. Imposter syndrome will be your best friend for a while. It will make you question yourself in ways you've never questioned yourself before. You will feel stupid, you will feel like you don't belong. Why should someone like me, from my little town, my little village, my little part of the world, be writing? I have no business writing. Maybe, perhaps, the words from teachers, some parents, people you've known in your life who are not very encouraging, maybe their words will come back to haunt you, where they've, discouraged you from doing anything creative. Oh, you should never write, you haven't got a poetic bone in your body, your vocabulary is terrible, you can barely spell. People like us don't write. I've actually known quite a few people who have completely shelved their dreams because people like them, people with no money, from certain backgrounds, from certain socio-economic backgrounds, don't do things like that because they should be working and they should be in certain trades. So imposter syndrome will step in. The words of ghosts in your past will step in, but you have to sort of soldier on, because you and you alone will decide whether you should be writing or not. Now, if you don't know what imposter syndrome is, here's an earlier video I made about imposter syndrome. And just to add that imposter syndrome is a condition that affects everybody. Presidents have had it, top CEOs, people at the peak of their game, people at the top. Everyone suffers from imposter syndrome. It's just something that happens. I guess in a way it's our brain trying to protect us, but it's just part of life. I've received so many messages with people questioning and doubting themselves, wondering if they're worthy of something, if they deserve something, if they're intelligent enough for it. And I'll say, I don't know. I can't help you with that question. All I can say is you have to try first. I never knew I'd want to write for profit. I thought writing would always be a romantic hobby. It was a hobby I'd had since I was a kid. It was something I'd always enjoyed doing, and I could just cozy up and write and do nothing else. If you told me several years later that people would be reading my books, emailing me about my books, talking about my books, emailing me about my characters and wanting to know when the next book was out, I would be surprised, because for me, writing was always my cozy little hobby. I didn't share it with the world. I never wanted anyone to know what I was writing, because in my mind, I was either going to be a doctor or a lawyer or a pilot or some sort of high-flying job. That was always the plan. The plan was never to go into full-time writing, yet here I am, and I'm loving every minute of it. So you don't know what you're going to be capable of, and you don't know where your strengths lie. That's what you need to find out, but you're not going to find that out unless you actually write. Now, space is important. When I say space, I mean, where are you going to write? Are you going to write in the woodlands every day? Are you going to go into the forest? Are you going to carve out a little space in your home? In conditions where you're maybe sharing with a younger sister, an older brother, it's probably a lot harder to get down and write. Where you have a big family and not enough space in the household, it's really difficult to tap into your creativity. However, I do believe you will need a safe space to write where, you're just left alone for a few minutes to a few hours and you can get on with it. I would say just try and just have a little space where you have a little desk, a little chair, and you have artifacts around you, just things, gadgets, pieces of your writing already, just perhaps inspirational quotes from other writers, just things that will get you wanting to write. I know that around my space I have a plant, I have my little mushroom figurines, I have my skulls. I love skulls, don't judge me please. I have my candlestick holders, I have my pens, I have my writing on the walls, I have paperwork everywhere, I have my books, and I have all these things that inspire me and remind me of what this is all about, and remind me that this is a safe space, and remind me that all my work is around me and everything I've accomplished so far is around me, and I am worthy of what I'm doing, and I'm worthy enough to be recognized as a writer. That's very, very important. You need a space that you can carve out that will inspire you to write. You cannot leave it to chance to write anywhere, because the world can be a very chaotic place. And I am of the opinion that sometimes when people, it could be parents, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, grandparents, teachers, some people can be quite malicious. And I've actually seen people try and demotivate people from writing and just try and stop them. Just try and put enough doubt in them so they don't want to do it anymore, or they don't feel that they're worthy of it, or they feel that they're silly trying to write poetry or poems or do anything remotely creative. So be very, very careful of that. It happens quite a lot. Your space needs to be peaceful and a place where you can write and perhaps read as well. I think writing is just as important as reading. You have to be willing to read, and you don't have to be willing to read, fiction or anything too heavy. You can read fantasy, you can read short stories. I quite like I don't write dark, macabre tales, but I love reading dark, macabre tales. And I also like reading thrillers. I don't know why. I've been obsessed with thrillers since I was a kid. I think it was something I grew up reading, and I used to read a lot of the police procedurals from the US, and they were just absolutely fascinating to read. So, how do I know I'll be a good writer? You don't know you'll be a good writer. You have no idea you'll be a good writer. You could be an amazing writer. You could be a alright writer who's on the way to being an amazing writer as you learn the craft and you hone your skills. Or you could just realize that actually writing is too much hard work. Writing an entire book without knowing if you're going to get paid for it, without knowing if you're going to get anything out of it, that's extremely difficult, and that's a huge leap of faith. Writing is taking a leap of faith because I'm working on a 7-book series. 7 books. Now the first book is out, but for all I know, the readers could turn around and say, oh no, this is terrible, never write again. So it's a huge leap of faith. But you have to know, and you have to sort of know where your strengths lie and where your weaknesses lie. And I know that compared to 6 years ago, I've honed a lot of my skills, and I've kept writing, and with lots of feedback from editors, beta readers, and just the reading community in general, I sort of know where my strengths lie and where my weaknesses lie. Writing is a leap of faith. It consumes a lot of your time. It takes up all your emotional space. It takes up a lot of emotional energy as well, and that's something that is not talked about enough. Because you're writing characters, you're building entire worlds around characters, and you are deciding if these characters will live or die. And that's a very important factor, because after writing a character for 3 books in a row and getting to know this character, and then realizing that, oh, this character's time is up, is especially difficult. So it's a very emotional process, and it's very long, and some people will agree that if you're not sure if you're going to benefit from it in the end, it might be just worth writing for fun. And even if you don't feel writing for fun is worth it, that's fine. You can always do something else. But if you want to know, you just have to write. Right, I hope this video was of some help, because I have had this question rather a lot, and I hope it was of some help, or some benefit anyway. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.